What is the climate like in Piha? It's got black sand, it's got the Tasman Ocean. It has cold southwest winds. It also has, though, it has this fringe of Pohutukawa trees which run along the beach, which provide some refuge from the wind. And the way they formed, you can see they're leaning away from the wind. It's a wild, wild coast. I'm Lance Herbst of Herbst Architects, and this is the Kawakawa Beach House. The house is situated overlooking Piha Beach, which is on the west coast of Auckland, about a 45-minute drive out of the city. So the topography of the beach really is pretty steep mountains coming straight down onto the coast, and the house is pushed up against the base of a fairly steep mountain. This house is all about light and air. It's designed to let the wind in, and it's designed to let the light in. It's construed as being a building that wants to be open as much as possible. It's almost a pavilion more than a building, but it can shut down and be completely protected from the weather, but that's not its primary setting, as it were. Where the house sits in the topography, it's kind of layered. If you start at low tide, really, you've got kind of wet sand, and it reflects the sky in a way. And then as you move up, you get onto a kind of hot, hot beach because it's got dune grasses in it. And then just behind that is a road that runs the length of the beach, which services the houses behind that. So the site essentially starts at the road at the back of the dunes, and it runs right up to the top of the mountain. And the buildable part of the site was essentially an existing building that was on the site that we demolished. The reason being is that the rest of the site is covered in mature Pohutukawa trees, which are highly respected and protected in New Zealand. So the idea really was to get out of the ground as much as possible. So essentially the entire brief is lifted up off the ground. So the design of the house responds more to the canopy of the Pohutukawa trees than it does to the beach in some way. On arrival, you arrive in a car, you drive underneath the building. There's some storage down on that level, but essentially you arrive up a spiral stair and you are immediately encountered with a negative space in the center of the square of the plan above, which is open. It's an open courtyard, which is glazed on three sides. You then enter into a very simple living, dining, kitchen arrangement, which is spread out so that we can pick up the view onto the beach from all the spaces. There's a circulation system which wraps around the open courtyard, which gets you to 3 bedrooms around the back and bathrooms attached to those. So the building form really came out of, the first decision was to lift it out of the ground to get the view, and then what we really wanted to do was engage with Pohutukawa trees. So a clear story all the way around the top floor allows us to engage with the trees from all spaces. The bedrooms, the bathrooms, each one having its own particular relationship with different parts of the forest. That really is one of the most rewarding things, because it has been beyond our imagination in terms of its success, is that it really does. You can be in the space and you cannot help but your eyes constantly lift up, being pulled up to the trees. So it's been remarkably successful in that regard. The outside of the building is essentially 2 materials, and that's glass and bandsawn cedar with a black stain on it, which is fractured and colored to kind of pick up on the striated bark of a Pohutukawa tree. Otherwise, we've got some blockwork and some steel in the base of the building, but essentially it's a very mono palette on the outside. It's just black timber, glass. Material-wise, once we get inside of the building, we're essentially using a palette of birch ply and structural radiata timber and spotted glum flooring. So where we've used the birch plough on the outside, we've stained it dark to match the color of the trees, whereas we've kept the natural color of the timber to the radiator frame and to the ceiling and onto the floor. Just natural timber colors inside the space. The other senses are very well serviced in this part of the world as well, and particularly this site, is that if you open up to the west and the wind is blowing off the ocean, there's so much salt. You can actually feel it on your skin. It makes it slightly sticky. It's very, very particular. Other senses is that color is a huge thing. And all of those red flowers on the Pohutukawa bring in tui and birds, and so there's constant bird song in this part of the world. At a certain time of the year, these trees are covered in cicadas and it becomes deafening. In terms of the wind, the way it hits the trees, it's not so much a whistling through the trees, it's more the wind hitting a resistance. And there's kind of like a movement of the trees and a kind of a groaning, but hear the movement of not just the boughs moving, but the entire body of foliage. For this house, we're really proud of the way the building responds to the landscape and how it presents as part of the landscape now that it's finished, that it's not an imposition into it. Favorite part is the games we had with the Clear Story and what it gives back, the light it gives back, the views it gives back, the elegance of structure that it gives back.